Look, Hugh, I know you're a blacksmith, but I really don't think that's how you should hold a hammer.
Oh yeah, and who are you to tell me what to do?
I mean, if you're gonna hold it so high up the shaft,
Then what?
then why does it have such a long shaft in the first place?
What, you think I'm gonna let you run around with a longer shaft than me?
I regret this line of questioning.
Ladies, gentlemen, and tarnished of all ages, how do you feel about bonking your enemies in the skull?
Good? Great, because today is all about hammers, and not just any hammers, but great hammers. This weapon class is awesome. The moveset they have is quite potent, even more so in power stanced. They swing quickly, they have great range, and you can have more types of damage than just strike with these as well, mostly thanks to the pickaxe, which is a surprisingly fantastic option among great hammers. That said, what tends to make these weapons so good compared to many other classes of weaponry are their Ashes of War. There are a few unique great hammers that can just do things that no other weapon can, and they can do them in ways that absolutely destroy a lot of enemies. For example, the Envoy's Longhorn fires at a massive field of bubbles. Each bubble that comes in contact with an enemy deals a large chunk of damage, and the more bubbles that hit, the more damage it does, leading up to absolutely insane numbers on larger targets. And that is only one of them, and the thing is, as good as these weapons have been since the release of Elden Ring, it is only recently that they actually got even better. With the release of patch 1.06, great hammers have gotten even stronger. Their light attacks and power stance attacks have always been great, but now these strong and charged attack have gotten even better too, quite specifically just being faster to launch now than they used to be, making them more usable as an option, which is of course great for a weapon class that tends to scale quite well with strength, allowing you to aim for one big meaty hit and then just move on to the next enemy. As well, these weapons have simply been made safer to use, now having less animation lock and letting you roll sooner after an attack, rather than making you stand there waiting afterwards. This lets you play this weapon type more aggressively than you could before and be more safe while doing so. And who doesn't like some good aggressive gameplay, am I right? On top of that, they of course have a unique sound effect when you hit an enemy in the face. Okay, maybe that's not the sound they make, but it should be, and I hope this sound gets patched in soon, because it's accurate to what it would feel like. The main thing to talk about here, though, is why you would use this weapon class over the regular hammers and over the colossal weapons that are basically also hammers. And the answers are relatively simple. Like I said before, many of these actually have pretty strong unique weapon skills that make them quite good, but in general, the moveset is great as well. The swing speed is fast, and for the most part as a weapon class, they have pretty decent reach and damage. This makes them better than base hammers, and the speed of the attacks is what makes them arguably better than colossal striking weapons, especially when you consider something like power stancing. Great hammers are sort of perfectly in that sweet spot right in the middle between the two. They hit harder than normal hammers and faster than colossal weapons while also weighing a fair amount less, and their damage is still extremely meaty. That on top of the unique weapon skills that they have means that you can really get a lot done with just a couple of great hammers, one in each hand, switching back and forth to use their unique weapon skills. So, let's talk about a few specific ways that you can use great hammers and a few specific great hammers that are particularly worth using. First up, one you can find super early in the game, the Brick Hammer. This is the only great hammer that reaches S tier strength on heavy scaling, and it is quite a potent bashing stick, perfect for a pure strength build, or even a strength and faith mixing paladin style build type of thing. There is also the Rotten Battle Hammer. This one cannot be found until a little bit later in the game's path, but it is quite the unique weapon as well, being one of only a handful of weapons at all that are able to apply Scarlet Rot to enemies. It has a strength scaling when set to heavy, or you can go another way with it, making it apply both Scarlet Rot and poison if you so please, setting lots of slow ticking debuffs on your opponent while smacking their face in with it at the exact same time. The other most notable of the non-unique Great Hammers is the Great Stars. You may have heard of this before, it is quite a special weapon, but in case you haven't, this is the big spiky mace that heals you every time it deals damage to an enemy, and that is quite a special little effect to have, given that while there are other weapons that heal you, pretty much all of them will only heal you if you kill an enemy with them, which makes them nice and convenient for open world purposes, but not quite as great against bosses where that effect just won't really take place. This one, however, will heal you for 1% of your health on every single hit, which may sound like a small amount, but it can really add up over the course of a fight, especially when you stick an Ash of War onto it that takes advantage of this. Something like Prelate's Charge, for example, will actually heal you for every single tick of damage from the charge, which, as you can imagine, is quite a significant heal over the length of a bar of stamina.
I am immortal.
After this, we then come to some really special weapons, the first of which is actually somewhat disappointing when put into effect, but it's a really cool concept, the Devourer's Scepter. This weapon's unique skill pulses a massive circle around you that actually has lifesteal, giving you health from the enemies you damage. Unfortunately, it takes quite a while to cast and has no hyper armor while casting, and is a little bit lacking in damage, but still, this weapon is great for level clearing purposes, dealing with loads of small enemies at once. If you want to do something like run around an area collecting all of the enemies within it and then pulse them down with one big boom that heals you, it definitely has those types of niches of areas of use. But there are also a couple of weapons that are a little bit better. One of these is the Cranial Vessel's Candlestand. This thing I love because, well, essentially this is the melted skull of a fire prelate who wanted to be used as a weapon, and so he is, in fact, used as a weapon. This great hammer has exceptional reach on its melee attacks, as well as a unique skill that fires out little fiery balls of doom all around you in multiple pulses. Again, this is great for more multi-target scenarios, doing much better against multiple enemies than just one. The last two worth talking about here are much more effective in other ways though. I talked about it briefly before, but the Envoy's Longhorn is actually one of the strongest unique weapons in the game against anything that isn't full-on resistant to holy damage. Its rain of bubbles will absolutely destroy most things, especially bigger things, mostly because you can really pile on the buffs to increase its damage. But it is just the nature of the Ash of War itself that makes it capable of this, the spreading multiple bubbles. The weapon's melee hits themselves are still pretty damn strong as well, and it's just pretty on top of that, like the weapon itself looks great. Then finally we have the Beastclaw Great Hammer. This is one of the rewards from Geraint the Beast Clergyman's Grand Deathward quest, and it is pretty damn good in its own right. The scaling is quite mixed, and so the melee hits never quite reach the ridiculous levels of some of the other great hammers like the Brick Hammer, but when fully upgraded this thing will give you a pretty damn strong strength-based ranged attack for a Ash of War. That also has the ability to hit multiple targets in a cone. The weapon isn't as strong as the Envoy's Longhorn, but provides a little bit of a different utility in its own way, and the thing about all of these special hammers is that they come with the moveset, speed, and comfortability of use that makes great hammers what they are. Great hammers. A special class of weapon capable of accomplishing great things. If you haven't checked out great hammers yet in all of your time with Elden Ring so far, you're just missing out. If you are looking something to base your next build around, one of these may well be the answer, especially after this nice buff that they've received in patch 1.06. I hope you've all enjoyed this little exploration into great hammers, what makes them good, and what makes them better even now after the patch. These are a weapon type that I personally really enjoy playing around with, so I'm just happy to spread the news to people who may not have tried them themselves. Like if you liked the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.